That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, guys, I promise this is the last time I make this announcement, but it's a very big deal for me. And I know a lot of y'all only care about fantasy football. I know most of y'all don't care about me. And honestly, you shouldn't. I don't blame you. We are here for fantasy football, and that's why we stick it to only fantasy football 99.99% of the time. But I just want to make the announcement that y'all know I have been at a crossroads lately. I'm graduating from the University of Texas with a few degrees in a couple weeks, and I didn't know if we were going to go to graduate school. I didn't know if we were going to take the quote-unquote safe route or if we try to go for it. We try to pursue this full time, and to be honest, we have gotten so much support over on Patreon over the past few weeks to the point where I was kind of sitting on the fence. I was probably leaning on trying to go for it, trying to do this fantasy gig full time after we graduate. Now, y'all have just completely pushed me over. Y'all have just made this decision easy, where now I think that we can do it. So we are going to be going full time with covering fantasy sports. Now, this is 100% because of all of y'all supporting the show. Even if you're not supporting the show on Patreon, like I've said before, just by watching this video, just by subscribing to the channel, dropping likes, leaving comments, you're supporting the channel in a way that allows me to do this. So I owe everybody watching this right now, even if this is your first time watching the video, a massive, massive thank you. And I promise you, I'm going to continue to try to work as hard as I can. I'm going to continue to work harder than anybody else. That way I can try to bring y'all the most relevant Dynasty fantasy football news. And once we get to the season, the most relevant week-to-week fantasy football news. And yeah, a quick side note also, because we're making this decision, I think I'm going to move to Florida. I'm going to move from Austin to go be with my family. So we are going to be moving to a different studio. So we are going to have a completely different setup. We're going to have a completely different background. I think we're just going to try to fill out an entire wall. I'll probably be moving to a 1x1 apartment where you can probably see my entire apartment with the background. So I need new stuff for a new set. So please, if you have any ideas of what you would like to see on the wall, we are going to have a ton of space to fill out. It's not going to be as small as what we've had right here with only 3 jerseys. So if you want to send me stuff, that's great. We've had people send us stuff like this helmet. We have Wanted Alex in the Discord chat sending us something that's very exciting sometime soon. Please, you can do that. Just hit me up on DM. Or if you just have any ideas, also hit me up on DMs through Discord, Patreon, Twitter, wherever it is. Please let me know what you would want in the new background. Okay, but that's it. Let's dive into this video. That was way too long of an intro. Okay, here we are going to be ranking the running back landing spots, and let's start it off with Najee Harris. Okay, so a little bit of context with how we are going to be ranking these spots. Not only am I going to be looking at the situation these running backs are going into, but if you are just doing that, you are getting such a small piece of the puzzle where it's honestly not even that useful. What I would rather do is let's look at everything with the profile, not the running back themselves, but let's look at the draft capital, the team investment made into the running back, which should indicate the amount of opportunity that running back should see, as well as the competition in the backfield, as well as the offensive line, the quarterback play, the overall efficiency of the offense, so we can expect how many red zone trips we should see, how many sustained drives we should see from these running backs. So let's take everything into it pretty much except the running back talent. We are going to be taking draft capital, and we are going to be taking these situations. So yes, while maybe you have a guy like Michael Carter Jr. landing in a great spot in New York, he's not going to be at the top of this list because he was a day 3 draft pick, so the opportunity isn't necessarily guaranteed. But that's not the case with Najee Harris here, who gets drafted in the first round of the NFL draft at pick 24 overall. And yes, I have to admit, I did not think that this was going to happen. I know that this was a very common mock draft place for Najee Harris, where a lot of people thought he was going to go to the Steelers. I was on record going into the NFL draft going, you know what? I think the Pittsburgh Steelers need to focus in on offensive line. I think the last thing they need to do is take Najee Harris. Yet they give me the big middle finger. They go, Mason, you're just some kid. You have no idea what you're talking about. We are going to go get our 3-down running back. And regardless of what you think about Najee Harris's overall talent profile, what we can say is this investment into Najee Harris by the Pittsburgh Steelers pretty much guarantees that he is going to be a 3-down workhorse running back. And now, no, we've already talked about this, but that level of efficiency is not going to be nearly as high as you expected from a Le'Veon Bell or even a D'Angelo Williams or James Conner's magical year in Pittsburgh from so many years ago. And that's because this offensive line is significantly worse. That's because Ben Roethlisberger is a significantly worse quarterback, so you're not going to have those 2 safeties dropping back every single time. You're not going to have Najee Harris just continuing to run against light boxes, given the fact that they have to worry about Ben Roethlisberger. So the overall efficiency from Najee Harris should be expected to be a lot lower, in that the situation with the quarterback play and the offensive line and the overall offensive efficiency is not nearly as great as it once was in Pittsburgh. But nonetheless, looking at the other running back competition that he has in the backfield, combined with the investment the team made into him, it looks like whatever running back went there at that 24th overall pick, they were going to immediately be a workhorse running back. And we've talked about this so many times before. You chase volume, volume. And then when the efficiency comes, that's when you get the Christian McCaffrey. When the efficiency comes, that's when you get a guy like David Johnson. But if the volume is there, then at the very minimum, you're going to have a decent floor you can rely on. I mean, the volume is going to be there for any 3-down running back to, at the very worst, be a mid running back 2 in fantasy. So I think that this has to be the number 1 landing spot. Okay, so now let's go over to our number 2 landing spot, and this is going to be with Javonte Williams. And not only did he go at the very top of the second round to a team that lost Phillip Lindsay, to a team that really has no solid running backs, as you can look at Melvin Gordon and go, you know what, he's been horrible with this efficiency for a very long time now. I mean, Melvin Gordon has not been a good running back for a very long time, dating all the way back to Los Angeles. Most importantly, though, I don't want to just focus in on the fact that he goes at the top of the second round to a team that can have the touches to feed a 3-down guy. I want to focus in on what exactly the Denver Broncos did in this draft, because in the first round, they decided to pass up on Justin Fields. And I think not nearly enough people are talking about this, because this action by the team indicates that I think they secretly have an answer. They secretly think that they are going to be making a play at the quarterback position. Now, they passed up on Justin Fields the same day where we got news that it looks like Aaron Rodgers, there's a very slim chance that he is actually the starting quarterback for Green Bay this upcoming season. Now, I don't know if we are actually going to see Jordan Love get traded and instead Aaron Rodgers decides to stay, or maybe Rodgers himself gets traded. And I think the most likely landing spot, maybe not likely, but a favorite landing spot is going to be the Denver Broncos. You see this with what they decided to do by passing up with Justin Fields. I think this tells us that they think they're getting a quarterback upgrade. And not only did they indicate that they think a quarterback upgrade is coming in, but also they decided to trade up for Javonte Williams in the second round. This is something that we talk about all the time. Historically, when you've seen teams trade up to get a running back, they have plans. They know what they are going to be doing with that running back in their offense. A great example of this is looking at Alvin Kamara. Now, Alvin Kamara back in that 2017 draft, he was only a 3rd-round running back. That's not great NFL draft capital, but you saw the Saints trade up for him even while they had some decent running backs like Mark Ingram and Adrian Peterson on that running back depth chart, yet they trade up for Alvin Kamara, indicating that, hey, not only do they think that he is the best player available on the board, they probably thought that he was the best player available on the board for a decent amount of time, and they just were tired of seeing him fall, and they went, you know what? We have to snipe a few teams ahead of us. We have to get up in this range. You saw this also in 2020 with the Indianapolis Colts trading up for Jonathan Taylor. So now you have Javonte Williams going into a situation where possibly the quarterback is going to get upgraded. The overall efficiency of the offense should be as well. And the team shows us that they really want to give this running back just an insane amount of touches by making that significant investment into him by trading up at the very top of the second round. So Javonte Williams, you have to be excited about this landing spot, even with Melvin Gordon in town. Okay, so now our next landing spot is going to be on this list more so about the NFL draft capital rather than the landing spot itself. But this is going to be Travis Etienne going off the board with the 25th pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, there are a few things here. No, the Jags did not trade up to take Travis Etienne, but we can point out the fact that this is a team that was about to pick right again. I mean, they had a pick at the 201, so if they waited 7 picks, they would have had a shot at Travis Etienne yet again, but they thought it was important enough. They thought that the likelihood that he was drafted between their 2 picks was high enough that they were willing to spend the 25th overall pick on him. And I know that Urban Meyer has come out and said that, hey, Travis Etienne is going to be our 3rd down running back. James Robinson is still going to be a significant part of our offense. And this is what I talk about all the time. This is what we were talking about 2 weeks ago when the reports came out that said, hey, Aaron Rodgers is very happy in Green Bay. The coaches love him here. He's going to be here forever. We are in a happy marriage. And I was saying, don't believe it. Don't it doesn't matter at all with coach speak. You literally don't want to pay attention to that in the slightest. What you want to focus in on is you need to focus in on team actions. Team actions speak so loudly where coach speak literally doesn't mean a thing. I mean, I said this on the main fantasy football channel, and y'all know I am not a political person. I don't care about politics at all, but I think the perfect parallel for this is viewing head coaches kind of like politicians. They come out and they pretty much say whatever they can to make as many people as happy as possible. So, of course, Urban Meyer is going to come out, and he wants the veterans on the Jags to feel good. He wants James Robinson to not just put his head down and look at Twitter and have everybody mocking him. No, he wants to go, hey, James Robinson, don't worry, bud. You were great for this team last year. You are still going to have a very large role this year. I mean, what does it accomplish by Urban Meyer coming out and telling the public, telling the Jags fans who love James Robinson, hey, Travis Etienne is now our 3-down running back. Travis Etienne is going to be the guy that is handling the majority of the workload. That's why we drafted him in the first round. No, fans will get pissed. Fans will go, what did we just do? We have James Robinson. Why did we just spend this pick? Yet, if they go out and they go, you know what, we are going to make sure we're utilizing both running backs to the best of their capabilities. We're going to have Travis Etienne as the pass-catching guy, James Robinson as the guy that's working in on first and second downs. Then everybody can sit back, and then everybody's kind of happy. Now, I know the Jags fans probably shouldn't be happy that this pick happened, but I'm sitting here going, you know what, I don't care what they say. All I see is a first-round drafted NFL running back, and historically, unless you're Rashad Penny, you are seeing the full workload. You are seeing an opportunity to capture 70% of the touches in that offense every single time within your first 2 seasons at the NFL level. Now, for you to actually succeed with that, we don't know if that's a guarantee, but we do know it's a guarantee that that running back is going to get an opportunity to be a 3-down guy at the NFL level. Now, with Travis Etienne, he profiled to be that coming in. But I know we're not focusing in on talent. If we were focusing in on talent, Travis Etienne would be at number 2, not number 3. We have to have him down here at number 3 because James Robinson is there, and James Robinson is a very good running back. But please, guys, understand that Travis Etienne is going to get the volume. Travis Etienne is the guy there. I mean, look at the investment. That's really so much of the puzzle where coach speak literally is nothing. Okay, so now let's go over to another running back that was actually traded up for, and I think if it was the same NFL draft capital, this running back could be the number 1 spot on the list. It's going to be Trey Sermon coming in here at number 4. Now, of course, the 49ers is a dream landing spot. I mean, you're only battling for touches with Raheem Mostert, with Jeff Wilson Jr., and we have Trey Sermon as another one of these running backs that the 49ers decided to trade up for. So that is significant. I want everybody to pay attention to that. Now, the reason he's going to be down here at 4 rather than at 1 is because it is a late 3rd round pick at the end of the day. And we can look at it and we go, hey, Trey Sermon has the talent. This is a depth chart he can easily extend. And we know that once he gets to the top of it, there should be a significant amount of fantasy points there because we can expect the 49ers to be one of the best offenses in the entire NFL. So the situation looks fantastic. But the one thing that's going to keep him down here at number 4 is just the fact that he was that late 3rd round pick. You look historically, that doesn't guarantee him the start at a full-time running back position like you do have with the other 3 guys at the very top of the draft, because I promise you, I mean, go look through recent memory. Go look over the past 5-6 seasons. I actually break it down over the past decade in our rookie draft guide that should be out by the end of the month over on Patreon. But if you look historically with where these players get drafted in the NFL draft, at the end of the 3rd, a lot of the times you are getting your opportunity to start. A lot of the times you do get running back 1s coming out of this range. But it's not a guarantee that they get that workload. Yet, if he does, I think the efficiency is going to be so high based on the offensive line he's running behind, based on the quarterback play that should be there, based on Kyle Shanahan, most importantly. So, yeah, Trey Sermon has to be here at number 4. Would be higher if it wasn't for the draft capital spent on him. Okay, so now let's come in here at number 5, and let's talk about Michael Carter Jr. I know a lot of people probably want to have him higher than this. Very similar to Trey Sermon. I mean, looking at the Jets were going to be one of the best landing spots coming into the NFL draft, yet he does last until the 4th round. And if you look historically, I know a lot of people want to come into the comments and they want to go, Mason, shut up. NFL general managers get it wrong all the time. And I'm not going to sit here and argue with that, but I am going to just look at the numbers. I am going to look at, most importantly, the opportunity that is represented by the team investment that goes into these players. And Michael Carter Jr. going in the 4th round, even if it's an easy depth chart where he can eventually work his way up to the top. It's going to be a very similar situation to what you see with some of these other guys. where based on this capital, even if he does have an impressive rookie season, you could end up seeing the team decide to go into a different direction if they like where value represents itself. So with Carter Jr., yes, the Jets, a great spot. You could see a running back here become a workhorse. Now, Michael Carter Jr. himself, I mean, y'all know I don't like the talent, but we're not talking about talent. We're just talking about landing spots. We're just talking about team investments. So you love the spot of the Jets. You don't like the team investment. So that's why Michael Carter Jr. is going to be down here at 5. Okay, so now let's get Stevenson up here going to the New England Patriots with the 15th pick in the 4th round. Now, if you look at the Patriots landing spot, yes, they have Sony Michel, but Sony Michel has been horrendous. Sony Michel is in that same category of a Rashad Penny from that same draft class. A quick side note, both of those running backs were actually drafted ahead of Nick Chubb, which is pretty funny to look at. But nonetheless, you have Sony Michel, you have Damian Harris, and the reason I want to have him down here at 6 is I think immediately this is not going to be a great spot because you should expect those veteran running backs to most likely get the majority of the touches in this offense. I think in the long term, though, like if you're talking about at the end of 2021, if you have Mac Jones at quarterback for the New England Patriots, Stevenson could actually be in a great spot. Now, of course, we're not going to dive into his actual talent profile, but with Mac Jones coming in, what's going to be a lot better for for the New England Patriots skill positional players is Cam Newton himself. While yes, he may be a decent fantasy option when he is starting, that's going to be mainly due to the fact that you should be able to project a decent amount of rushing touchdowns for him. You should be able to project a decent amount of rushing production in general, where you don't want that from your quarterback. If you're trying to start their starting running back, you don't want that if you're trying to start their starting wide receiver, because the last thing you need is for that team to get down to the 1 yard line. And then that quarterback, instead of handing the ball off to the running back at the goal line, they're running a QB power and they're taking it in themselves. I mean, that is the worst case scenario. But in the case of Mac Jones, if Mac Jones does come in, not only will Mac Jones never do that QB power at the goal line, but more importantly, Mac Jones doesn't have the mobility to escape the pocket and really to run for 8 yards at a time. Instead, he's going to be more so like a Drew Brees to an Alvin Kamara, or he's going to be willing to check the ball down consistently. So Stevenson, I mean, he lands on a depth chart where, yeah, there are some options ahead of him, but of course, every running back in the 4th round is going to be dealing with that same thing. And I think that once Mac Jones switches over, and if you see Stevenson be able to then command the starting role, I think the situation isn't that bad. I mean, they do have a very solid offensive line. Okay, so let's get our last player up here. And I know y'all are going to hate me talking about this, but let's talk about Chuba Hubbard. Now, Hubbard, I actually love this spot because a lot of these running backs we're looking at with day 3, I mean, you don't want them to be in situations where it's kind of like a gray area. You don't want them to be kind of a running back 1B to a running back 1A, because a lot of the times if they don't have the talent and they fall to day 3, unless they are seeing 75% of the touches, most of the time if you try to start them in fantasy, you are going to be disappointed. But in the case of Chuba Hubbard, what I really like here is not only does he not fall outside of round 4 like you saw with a guy like Kenneth Gainwell, but he goes to the Panthers. Now, if you look at the Panthers running back depth chart, they have Christian McCaffrey, and obviously you will never consider starting Chuba Hubbard in any game that Christian McCaffrey is active. But this is the one scenario where you go, hey, maybe Chuba Hubbard becomes like a Tony Pollard. Maybe all of a sudden, if you have CMC going down, Chuba Hubbard then becomes Mike Davis. And you don't have to sit there and go, oh, do I start Hubbard? Do I bench him? What are we doing in this scenario? No, you start him every single time because he's going to be playing for one of the better offenses in the NFL with one of the better coaching staffs, at least one of the more creative coaching staffs. And we have seen that they want to give whoever their starting running back there is the majority of the touches, which Hubbard can handle. We saw that in 2019. But of course, we're not going to be talking about his talent. We're just going to be talking about the fact that he lands on a running back depth chart that has a stud, that has the best running back in the NFL. But behind that, there is no clear running back 2. And I think Hubbard can immediately go and gain that role on the depth chart. And if anything happens to the guy ahead of him, I mean, he vaults up to being in a situation where he's in one of the more appealing options in the entire draft class. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Let me know what y'all thought of this. The reason I did this is because we got this request over on Patreon. I believe I wanted Alex. I could be wrong on that, but nonetheless, maybe I do this with the wide receivers tomorrow, but it's going to be dependent on what y'all thought of it, if y'all liked it. So please go down to the comment section. Let me know. And lastly, I have to thank everyone for all the support. It means a ton. And yeah, I'll see y'all with the video tomorrow. I want to give a big thank you for everyone supporting the show in Benjamin, Bill, Jason, Matthew, Hutton, Sean, Freddie's Berto, Andy, Frederick, and Chris.